I don't want to hold things.
Okay. Calling the meeting to order at 7:05. Andrea, would you like to lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Suzanne, would you take roll, please?
Yes, trustee Villalobos.
Here.
Trustee Burdall.
Here.
Trustee Shiatari.
Here.
Trustee Levin.
Here.
And trustee Gould. Here. Thank you.
Thank you. The district digitally records the audio portion of the meetings. The recorder is located in front of the board scribe. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. As a community service, Pacifica Community Television records and broadcasts meeting. Report out on closed session. The board met in closed session regarding conference with labor negotiator agency, CSCA, LSMA, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, public employee performance evaluation, title superintendent. No action was taken. Approval of the minutes. Are there any changes? No? Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Second? All in favor?
And this is for the September 13th,
Yes.
2017, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Board
you.
passes 5-0.
Approval of the minutes, October 4th. Any changes? Discussion? Is there a motion to approve the October 4th minutes? Second? All in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda and consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved with one motion which is not debatable and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. If any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests, any item shall be removed from this section and placed in the regular order of business following approval of the consent agenda. Okay, seeing nobody wanting to change anything, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
A motion to approve.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
Communications. This portion of the agenda is available to the public to address the board on any issue that is not on the agenda. The maximum time allowed for any speaker is 3 minutes. LSCA?
Hello, how are you guys?
Good.
Tonight we have Natasha Glasgow and her assistant Ryan doing a presentation on the Valamar Garden. So I'm the lead for the Valamar Garden, and I took over when Jean McMartin retired at the end of the school year last year. And I'm super excited to work with the group of kids at our school, and I work with 3rd through 8th graders 3 weeks, once a week for 3 weeks of the month, and then once a month we open it to K through 8th graders, and so I lead them through 3 weeks of workshops, and then they lead the rest of the school on a workshop once a month. So anybody that wants to come to the school to participate can do so. Here is a picture of the garden being built. This was built a couple years ago, and a lot of the money went to building it, so we didn't have a lot of money for plants. But this year we've been receiving a lot of help from our PTO, and community organizations have also been happy to contribute, which we're really thankful for. Like I said, the garden club meets once a week after school. The students learn hands-on about planting seeds, plants, weeding, watering, harvesting, and composting. And we do 2 kinds of composting. We do worm composting, which the kids love, and it's not as gross as you think. And then we do, we just built the skeleton for a 3-bin composter, and the kids helped me screw in the screws and hammer the nails, and it was really fun for the kids. Here's our sign that we made. We agreed on some different things about respect and respecting each other in the garden. The garden is open as an outdoor classroom for all of the classes in our school to use for their classrooms, for the art classes to use for inspiration. And one of the things I'm working on now, as the garden lead, is to create lessons that each teacher in each grade can use a different lesson once a month, so that they'll have a pre-prepared lesson. All the stuff I will have prepped for them, so all they need to do is take their kids out there for an in-school field trip. This is my class out in the garden. The first week of school, they were tasting tomatoes and strawberries, and they loved it. Kids can connect with nature. The girl on the left, she was actually a student of mine in kindergarten, and she's now a freshman at Oceana. She comes back once a week to help in the garden, and she caught a snake in that picture, which you can't see, but it was awesome. This kid in the middle is a kid in my class who had never felt the inside of a pumpkin before. We grew those pumpkins in our garden at school, and I used the insides of the pumpkin to make a puree for muffins for the garden club, and then gave the recipe to the kids in the garden club, and he was excited to feel it. Those are picnic tables that were installed so that kids can use the outdoor classroom.
Why do you just press, Mom?
This one.
You see?
Those are kids doing gardening. They can learn valuable life skills. In the middle are tomatoes that we picked from the garden, and I made it I took it home to make into a pasta sauce, and the kids could take it home and use it at their houses to make pasta. So our goal is eventually to raise enough money to have an outdoor kitchen at our school. So we're on our way there. And the right side, a boy is planting seeds to grow in the garden. One of the benefits of a school garden is that it boosts academic achievement. The kids take pleasure in learning not only about the garden, but they start showing more interest in learning at school in the classroom. They show positive attitudes towards education. Kids that didn't always come to school on time or at all start coming to school, and increase in grades and test scores, not only in garden education, but in every subject across the board. Decrease in school discipline issues. They feel connected to teachers around campus. They feel connected to their community, and they have started sticking up for each other. They eat healthier, engage in more physical activity, whether it be hammering a hammer or running around the garden. And the kids in our garden club report feeling that school is a safe place, which is really awesome. Kids come to me for advice on non-gardening issues, which is really special as a teacher, and I just feel like I'm so happy to get the opportunity to do this with the kids. Another benefit is that it strengthens individual character. The kid on the left is a super sweet boy that's he's grown up speaking a different language, and so he's been in the school kind of finding his way academically, and he is the most amazing builder and gardener, and I'm so happy to get to know him. And that jug is an old milk jug, I have to be quiet, that's filled with worm poo, and we use that to water the garden, and it actually helps the plants grow. We did experiments watering with regular water and worm poo, and the worm poo works. The middle picture, they're painting chairs that my neighbor was giving away for free. They painted them beautifully, and if you want to see them, you can stop by the garden. And those are some of the heirloom tomatoes that we've grown in the garden on the right. There's another one of our composters. Some nasturtiums in the middle, which are edible, and on the right top, that's a boy helping me paint the 3-bin composter that he helped build. And girls watering with milk jugs. We've also already experienced an enhancement of school community. Kids feel like they're a part of their community, a part of the school, a part of Pacifica. they really feel like it is an exciting time that they can share with their families, their classmates, and their community. So that's it. Do you remember the garden?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Wow, that's impressive.
Super fun.
Can I just ask, do you,
Yes.
for the composting, is it connected at all with the kitchen at the school?
Our plan is to connect it further. The kids in Garden Club have created compost bins that they'd like to have in the school cafeteria. However, the compost that we compost has to be a little bit we have to be more strict about what we compost. So that is a goal, and we are working towards that goal, and we hope to do it within the next couple months.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Anyone else have any? Oh,
Just a really quick question. I mean, I know that there's also a gardening program up at Sunset Ridge. I'm just wondering if the gardening programs at the various schools, you guys talk to each other and try to, like, there's a, I don't know, you guys meet or something like that?
Well, I haven't met with them yet, but I definitely plan to reach out to the other garden clubs at the schools, and also the Pacifica Gardens is a great resource. We went on a field trip the first week of school, which I didn't know was going to be possible, but it worked out great. And one of the people that volunteer at the Pacifica Gardens, she's actually planning to come and be a part of our garden club. Not to lead it, but she just loves what we're doing at our school. So we are reaching out to other schools, but also the greater San Francisco area. A couple gardening stores have offered to host field trips for our school to go and visit and lead potting programs and give us seeds. So we're really excited about that too.
Hopefully Sloat over by the
Yes.
zoo be one of those.
We'll have to go to Sloat. We have Orchard Supply and then Flora Grub Garden planned, but I think Sloat is that's my favorite place.
Yeah.
Thank you.
thank you. CSEA?
Nothing.
Thank you. People wishing to address the board? I have no yellow cards. Correspondence? None. Okay. Board communications? Would you like to start us?
Okay. Well, besides the Pacifica, a couple weeks ago, we had the Pacifica collaboration meeting, which is once a month, and this month they focused on homelessness in Pacifica, and we gathered with the city and all that to try and come up with different, and the resource center to try and come up with solutions. Also, the Beach Coalition concerned about trash and there being restrooms and stuff like that. So hopefully you can't, obviously there's no easy answers, so it's just the beginning of talking, and hopefully we'll grow from that with all the different organizations getting together and talking to each other. They said there's 16 homeless encampments in town, so 16 of them. So and the Beach Coalition has been running into some of the encampments when they're doing the cleanup, since they've spread out into more areas than just the beach. And the other more big thing besides GEO-bond meetings and parcel tax meetings was the housing summit at San Mateo College that Wendy was at and presented. So it was on the different housing in the county, including workforce housing, all the different districts and how they're dealing with it. They had a psychologist from Stanford who presented on how by the time he has patients in a psychological crisis, a lot of times it's losing their housing is the last thing that tips them over the edge. So it was the coordination of just, these bad things happen, or they're in depression, stuff like that, and then if they have housing insecurity, it just is like the last straw. So he was just presenting on the psychology of that. So it was a really good day, informative day. Yeah.
I did some fun things. I went to the walkathon at Ortega, and this year it was indoors because of the fires, so it was a little different. It was dark in the NPR, but
it looks like it was a success regardless. They made over 14,000, not including ticket sales, right? And so that's excellent. And I just like going there. My daughter Sophia wore her class of 2012 shirt that has everybody's name on it. Yeah. I went to Valley Mars Fall Fair, you know, with the pony club. I tried to win the pony club, but I didn't club. But I went to the Library Advisory Committee, and they're looking at expanding and a more openness about where to have locations for the library, the new library, and keeping Sanchez, you know, possibly open. So, you know, that's something that's still on the horizon. And then, well, there was another one in here. I went to the Jefferson Union High School District. The state, you know, had to come in because they were suspending African Americans who are disabled at a disproportionate rate. So we're on a committee raise there too. And so we went for an update to go see how it was going. And it looks like we have more work to do. And so I'm just hoping that Pacifica, since we're a feeder school into that district, you know, can work on our suspension rates of African Americans and get it more in line with the other groups in our school district. So that's to be continued. And then I went to the city council meeting just on a whim. I know I was sick, but my daughter was there for extra credit, and apparently she was the only one who went out of her class. But
She got the extra credit.
she got the extra credit. But they did a presentation on Portola's 250th anniversary, and so my daughter's been involved, you know, sending around a petition, having the Ohlone recognized, you know, because they were here, you know, before Portola was. And so I think, you know, that was really important. So I dragged myself out of bed and ran over there, and it has to do with education. And it's right here in Pacifica at Sweeney Ridge where they want the signage to be. And so she was very impressed with how the meetings go, and I think she might want to go into some kind of public administration now. She's a senior. But that's everything. The last 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Tough to follow that up. Very, very quickly, I attended with our president the CPAC meeting 2 weeks ago now, something like that, a little over, where there was a person, I can't remember her name, right? Kristen Hardy from Jefferson Union High School District, and they were talking about the transition of special education students from our district and other districts into Jefferson Union. And it was very interesting, very well done. I might add that she came in for a 6 to 7:30 meeting on her birthday. So she's very dedicated, and we threw some, I think, some pretty detailed questions at her, and she was very good. So that was great. I attended San Mateo County School Boards Association meeting this past Saturday, and that it was a retreat, and it was brought in a Stanford lecturer who basically went through about 2.5 hours of interpersonal skills exercises, and just to try to get our communication better, because we have representatives from all sorts of districts from north and south of the county. So I think that's my report. Yeah.
I've been lazy.
I attended the meeting, but I actually have a follow-up question for both of you. Laverne, do you feel like, what was the reception to your daughter's ask of having a plaque? Was Was there any indication that this might happen?
Yeah, it was well received. Somebody from Golden Gate National Parks came up to her afterwards. I was sitting down, but he gave her her card, and then also somebody from the Portola side gave her the card too.
Oh, nice.
And so I think, things, are changing a little. And so just getting the Ohlone in there as well. Portola.
That's
So
exciting.
I think she felt like there was something there.
Good. Jesse, do you think I've attended that San Mateo County group. Do you think there was progress with doing that workshop?
I think there was a lot of progress. Because it was, I came in, I'm one of the newest members there.
Right.
So there was talk that was going on that really, the first two meetings that I went to, amongst other members, basically saying that there was friction.
Yes.
And there was a lot of friction there, and that they had to do something about it, and that's what precipitated this.
Right.
So one of the members knew this professor and had him come in and scheduled this, and I think everybody got a lot out of it. I mean, the last half hour was a round robin of what were your takeaways from today, and there was a huge positive response. So,
Good.
And I have to say that I'm really glad that I don't think this group needs it at all. I think we communicate just fine. But yeah, it was interesting. It's the first time I've ever done anything like
Oh,
that.
good.
So, yeah.
Because I've noticed the friction, and that's not going to help any of us if there's friction at that level. So I'm glad to hear that. Wendy.
So I did attend the San Mateo County Reading Association meeting. They honored, along with others, Catherine Mulholland, who received a Literacy Award. So it was really, really exciting for Pacifica to have, I think this is maybe one of our first to receive from the association. And so she said very kind words about us, and of course, we just love her work. A couple of teachers attended on her behalf, etc. So it was really nice. We are bringing on Tea Time. It's called Drive. It's a nonprofit organization through Harding Park. It's a national organization, and it's really the emphasis is to introduce students to golf, but more so interwoven is character education, character building. So it will be at Ortega School and at Sunset Ridge, and Patrick Jackson and Cheetah Garcia will be leading that effort for us. So we're really excited to have that starting. We have begun our early learning program coordination. The City of Pacifica was here along with staff members from Pacifica School District, and I believe the private preschools were available to us. And so again, we want to make sure that articulation is happening and we're moving forward. With our mathematics, we have what we call baseline information, and what's really exciting for our kindergartners, since I'm talking about early learning, is our kindergartners are coming in strong. They have a lot, their baseline information and their knowledge is really strong. So we're really appreciative of the work that the preschools are doing. And then those who aren't quite ready, we can hone in on those students and then support them. I did serve on a panel for that CSM workforce housing, and it was a full house. The room was filled. I think that there is huge interest in employee housing, and yet people don't quite know how to do it. So, and we're learning as we go. And Josie will be talking a little bit about that. But I think that what was really neat is the fact that as a organization, as a school district, we all rally behind needing to provide this option for our employees. And so I applaud our partners in being part of that journey and work with us. And I want to thank the community and the schools, especially, who worked with us through the San Mateo County Alert with the air quality.
they all did great work in ensuring that our students were in a good place. You know, they were at school, they were still engaged, but sometimes they could not go out for recess. And so, and PE, so they did a lot of indoor activities. I think, as Laverne said, you had to move the walkathon inside, and I think Cabrillo postponed one of their events because of air quality. So again, I think that our community pulls together and makes sure that we do what's right for our kids. And thanks to Ray and the Student Services Department getting those alerts out, and we're getting information back that yes, we are doing these certain things. So it was a great communication system. That's it. Thank you.
District business, district goals. The district values the goals provided in our local control accountability plan and strategic plan. All of our district board agenda items are tied to these goals. One or more goals are listed in the description of each board agenda item. The details for each of those district goals can be accessed on our Agenda Online public page or by visiting the district website www.pacificasd.org under District Information Board of Trustees. Approval of Resolution Number 2017-10-25-A, authorizing loan agreement with the San Mateo County Housing Endowment and Regional Trust, HART, for the Pacifica School District Workforce Housing Project. Josie?
So as Elizabeth and Wendy mentioned, we have been having a lot of meetings about the Odstad Workforce Housing Project. Both Kathy and Elizabeth serve on that committee. So we are moving forward. We did issue our request for qualifications, which is coming due next week, where we hope to get some qualified bidders to bid, be the initial responders for the project, and then we'll be moving forward with an RFP, which is a request for proposal for the actual development. We are spending some funds on consultant fees and legal fees as we move through this process, and so now we're looking at different funding mechanisms. The first thing we were looking at was the COP, Certificate of Participation, and then HART came to us with an offer of like an interim financing for the pre-development phase, because when we do the COP, we're basically going to be deferring our principal payments for a couple of years because we won't have rents coming in while the project is being built. So another way, a low-cost financing is through HART, because they're really campaigning for affordable housing in San Mateo County, and they have let us know that they're willing to loan up to $2.1 million for pre-development funding. And so we're coming to the board tonight to ask for approval to go ahead and negotiate with HART and enter into a loan agreement to borrow up to $2.1 million in the next year, where we would go forth first with $650,000 for the first phase of pre-development, and that would really be preparing bridging documents that we need for the next phase, which is the RF, the request for proposal. And then after that, we would do another loan. So we would do several loans with them. And, normally you're not able to enter into short-term financing. Remember the TRAN, it has to be paid back within a year. We've been working very closely with county council so that we can enter into these financing agreements where HART lends $650,000, and then at the end of the year, they renew the loan, and then we can borrow again up to $2.1 million. So it's getting kind of complicated. One of the things we're asking in this agenda item is that we do schedule a study session so the board can see the whole financing picture, an update on the whole budget pro forma of the project, because things have changed, construction costs have gone up, rents in the Bay Area have changed. So, tonight we're asking for approval to start negotiating this loan, but at the same time asking the board to schedule a special meeting just so we can talk in detail about the various loans and the budget and how we're moving forward with the project. And so there is a resolution for the board's review and approval tonight. I don't know if you have anything to add or any questions, because Kathy and Elizabeth have kind of come along this process with us.
I think the only thing to add is these meetings we have where we have phone meetings with various experts, financial, legal, building. I feel like we're getting very good guidance. Even with all that help, it's a little overwhelming, but they're all very patient, and, you know, we're all kind of figuring this out since we're the ones plunging into this. But again, I feel like we have a lot of oversight and a lot of people making sure that we are doing something that is not only beneficial but doable, that we're not getting ourselves into a bad place,
So I had a quick question that maybe you guys can answer. I'm not really sure. But this says that the origination fee is up to 1.45%. How do we get that down? I mean, that's a maximum, right?
That's actually, we've talked to them, our finance
Is it?
advisor has talked to them about, you know, lowering that, and it's already low for what
Sure.
the business that they're
Okay,
in.
so this up to is actually
That's the
not
it.
really.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, just wondering, because it's about 31 and change, which is about 4.8% of the 650, right? And that's what we'll get right now. I know it's a much lower amount at the full.
Right.
If everything goes smoothly and we decide, you know, everything goes and we get the full 2.15 million. But anyway, just seeing if it
Yeah, we
costs a little
tried.
bit. Okay, that's fine. Well, maybe the wording here shouldn't give us false hope.
Right.
should be at.
Yeah.
We tried.
Equal.
Heart is on our side. I mean,
Yeah.
Sure. No, it's fine. And I mean, the interest
They're
rate on the
not
loan
up to-
itself is 2%.
Yeah.
So that's,
Right.
you know, crazy good. So.
Were there any other questions for Josie or discussion?
How does if we're successful with the general obligation bond, how does that come back around? How can we use, is there any way to use any of that money?
So right now, that's a separate initiative that we're undertaking, and we're, you know, in the surveying and everything, we're looking at possibly using that as a safety net, because we did tell the public that, you know, Odstad would be financed with general fund backed debt, not taxpayer funds, and so we're looking at that as, and we'll talk in detail if we can schedule this study session, but we're looking at that kind of like as a safety net in the coming years if, you know, the project becomes delayed or there's some issues with construction. There would be possibly some language in the GEO bond that would enable us to utilize that to move forward.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Okay, this is an action item, so is there a motion to approve resolution number 2017-10-25A?
Move to approve.
Second? All in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
Thank you. 11B, Local Control Accountability Plan and Budget Update. LCAP Goals 1, 2, 3, Governance. Will and Josie.
All right, so this is kind of like a summary of what a summary of our work study. It's just kind of an overview of our 2016-17 outcomes and also our 2017-20 metrics and actions. So just kind of, again, as a review from our work study, in 16-17, under Goal 1, Conditions of Learning, we met or established baseline in all of our outcomes. The established baseline is the teacher reflection survey. We are establishing that baseline for this year with our new survey coming out to us through Panorama, which is going to happen in the spring, early spring. And then we met our benchmark for our facilities. What does FIT stand for again? Facilities? Inspection team rating.
Tool.
Yeah, tool, yeah. And so we met our benchmark there, and we also met our benchmark with the students having access to their areas of study. And teacher administrative credentialing. In our Goal 2, pupil outcomes, We did not meet our English learners' expected progress rate and our LTEL reduction rates. In that, we did reduce, but we didn't make our 10% that we were looking for with that. In our SBAC math, we met. In our SBAC English Language Arts and Physical Fitness test, we did not meet. And then our reading assessments, which was our now old DRA assessment system, we met that outcome. Within goal 3, which is around engagement, we met our suspension, expulsion, dropout attendance outcome, and we also met our increased family access to the Jupiter grades, or use of the Jupiter grade system. And then we established a baseline for family engagement, and we did not administer the California Healthy Kids Survey last year. We are administering surveys this year for our students, staff, and parents. And we just actually completed our student survey, and we just very recently received the results, so we're kind of going through those student surveys, which is very interesting. Now we move on again to our 2017-20 LCAP goals and metrics, and as we talked about in our work study, these are our goals were written slightly different, but they're pretty much the same. But the metrics that we use are different, and they're based on our growth on the California dashboard for academic pieces, and then also they're based on the California dashboard for our suspensions and expulsions and conditions for learning, and with our new surveys, it'll be connected with our goal 3 engagement. That's how we'll be measured. So for the 17-20, I mean, I'm not going to read through all of this, but we're at 100% in our fit. We have increased the number of teachers responding. You know, our metrics is to increase the number of teachers that are responding to survey questions on instructional materials and access to instructional materials. We want to increase that percentage that they're answering at levels 4 or 5, which is basically sustained or implemented and sustained. Those are the 2 marks for 4 or 5. And then in our pupil outcomes, we want to maintain our RFEP rate, which is it's a good rate right now, and increase our percentage of EL students who move up 1 CELT level per year, which is the ultimate goal, to have them keep moving up their CELT level. And then we want to maintain or increase change over time with all of our groups, including our unduplicated pupils, which is called out in our LCAP. That we are indicating we are indicating progress towards a colored green as in our dashboards, and we have metrics set up in a way that shows this growth towards that green over the 3 years, depending on the unduplicated pupils group for both English Language Arts and Math, as based off our SBAC scores. And then suspension and chronic absentee rates, we want to decrease them obviously, and increase our attendance rates. And then we're establishing a baseline through our surveys for student school connectedness and safety for our students, and parent decision-making and participation for our parents. So within the work study, we want to some suggestions and next steps that came out of that were, we want to review our matrix and make sure that our growths that we have put in with our metrics are reasonable and attainable. That was kind of called out when we went into that, is to make sure that they are they're attainable. These growth what the benchmarks are attainable, and we'll get a better idea of that when we go through the first year. We'll have a better idea of, okay, is this an attainable metrics or not, and we will be able to adjust them. And then there was some corrections that need to be made. Some the trustees pointed out that there was some errors on the minor errors on the accuracy of some of the metric growths.
Okay.
So we're going to be fixing that. And then review actions. I'll make sure that the actions that are below each of our goals are aligned with the goal, and strengthen the descriptors of them so that they're concrete, so that they're kind of real to the person reading the document and following it, is that they know that it belongs with, that action belongs with that goal, and it's clear where that's, what growth that we're looking for. And then meet with the San Mateo County Office of Education, which we have a plan and a date for that, to review our PSD LCAP and then come up with any other things. We have the San Mateo County Office of Education has a very supportive team in being able to provide that type of thing. They're actually going to be coming out here and working with us, looking at our LCAP and just seeing areas where we can make improvements or questions that they might have asked to really deepen our thinking around that. We did go over some data, and the data summary, there is a link now on the CDE website of our SBAC 2017 results, and the link is there on the screen. And that link really kind of breaks it down for you. You can actually dive pretty deep down into the different groups, but also at the grade levels. You can break it down by grade levels. So it's a good, if you want to take a closer look at the data, that website's public, it's open, you can click on it and you can find the data there. But some of the stuff that came out of that, and this is off that website, is our 2017 achievement level distribution. And the first bar there is the state of California, the second one is the San Mateo County, and the third one is Pacifica. And just generally looking at it, when you look at it first, what I do is I look at the bottom two colors, the really, really dark blue and the little lesser dark blue color. And those are, you want those areas to be very small, because those are the not met, they're the standard not met and standard nearly met. And so if you look at that going across, Pacifica, especially the dark blue, has less than both state of California and San Mateo County, and in both of them combined, they're pretty much even with San Mateo County, but they're below the state of California. So that's kind of a good way to look at it. Now, that's a half empty, but if you look at it half full, you look at the two top bars and make sure that they're bigger than the other ones. And if you notice, if you look at the two top bars, we are pretty much online with San Mateo County, but we are doing better than the state of California, and that is in English language arts. Now, if we switch over to mathematics, we can even see a similar picture here. Again, we're doing much better than the state of California, and we're pretty much, again, with that standard not met, we are below. We have a less of a percentage than San Mateo County, and again, we have we kind of about even if you look at the bottom two colors on those bars between San Mateo County and Pacifica. But overall, again, it's better than the state of California. Okay, and then this wasn't shared at the work study, but we thought that this was interesting. This came up kind of afterwards, and this gives you an idea based off the 16-17 SBAC report. It gives you that idea of where the gap is. The gap between our whole student. I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger so you can kind of see it. Why doesn't it go bigger? Oh, I guess it can't go bigger on the. But if you look at this, do you have a pointer? Oh, do you see my little arrow on there? Okay, so that's all students. And that all students is that dotted line. If you go down that dotted line, that's where all students are, right? And then you have the other groups compared with it. So you have, for instance, if you look at Asian? That's Asian? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they're above, they're performing above what all students are. They're performing at a better percentage than all students. While you look at the Black African American, and there's a gap. between them and the all students. So this was a really interesting chart to really kind of identify. You can't see the numbers there, and I'm having trouble seeing it on my screen, but it gives you it gives you the percentage, but it also gives you the number of students that are part of that population. And if you look down, you can see where those gaps are. Like English learner, right, compared to all students, it's a real low percentage. We have a number of English learners in our school district, so our sample size is pretty large. So that's telling. That's a significant amount. Now this is for English language arts, right? So that kind of tells you what previously known was the achievement gap, right? The achievement gap between your all students and your. Now, if you look, the other part of this document also showed yearly progress summary. And so again, if you look at this column here, 2016, and you compare it to this column here, 2017, it gives you a change. And so you want to be in the plus, right? You want to be in the plus. So how they perform, percent met or exceeded in 2016 versus the percent met or exceeded in 2017. So just as an example, all students went from 57 to 58, that was a +1. Now if you look down here at the African American, they had 8% in 2016 and they grew to 27%. So this is when we talk about status versus progress. The status gap is huge, right? But the progress is pretty significant progress there, plus 19. And then another one that kind of stands out is the Pacific Islanders. And they went from 21 to 30, which is a +9. So that is a pretty significant jump there. Now we did have a couple of minuses. 2 or more races went down, -3. And then we also had students with disability went down -3. So anyway, it's kind of an interesting chart. We do the same thing with math. So math here, if you look at the math, is then we have the achievement summary, all students, and you can see again, our African American population, our Hispanic Pacific Islander, right? Hawaiian Pacific Islander, and our students with disability. Real big gaps. Those orange little people show the gap there. So and again, so that anyway gives you an idea of that. And then we also have the yearly progress. And again, the big one that stands out here is our Pacific Islanders with 17% to 4%, which is a -13. Our African American had a +9 from 16 to 17, and our English language learners had a +10, which is a significant change from one year to the next. So this wasn't presented at the work study because I got it afterwards, but I just thought it'd be important to show you if we're thinking about gaps and where we need to put our where our actions and our work needs to be done with these groups. And then I can answer any questions on that part, and then Josie's going to kind of...
I don't actually have questions, I just have a couple of comments. On these graphs of the not met and nearly met, I think it's great that we're trending so closely, but I think it's disturbing that we're still looking at getting close to 50% of our kids not meeting. You know, I hope we can do better. I know everyone's working hard, but it's just still disturbing. And I think on these achievement summaries, I'm not a graph person, so what you're describing as interesting in the gaps, I'm glad to see that there's progress because I find those gaps disturbing. I just do. I don't have an answer for it, but...
when I looked at those graphs, the first thing that came, when I was looking at those graphs, the first thing that came to mind that I was, in many ways, very pleased with the progress, that second part of it, but also when I looked at the numbers in some of those groups, it would be interesting to tail down to those, what number of students, and see if there is a big divergent, like students performing exceedingly well and students performing really, like that, where those dots lie that represented each of those students. So that to me, it made me want to do that for those, especially the ones that have the smaller populations, the smaller sample sizes, because we can't forget about those, even though they're a small sample size, but I would want to know where they're at. I want to make them a group on our data zone, a cohort to follow those along. So that to me is the part that's like there's an urgency to, like, okay.
So Will, I think that those small groups are the ones that are almost easier to get at. What really concerns me, especially about the ELA, is the English learners and the students with disabilities, because they not only have a huge level gap, right? Actually, it's not called level, status gap, but they're also showing negative progress, at least in this last year, just by about 2-3%.
For the English learners?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good.
So if you can go back 3 or 4 slides, please, so I can show you what I'm talking about.
English learner and.
So go back one more slide for a second. So right here, the last 2 bars there, that the second to last is English learners, the last one's schools with disabilities. That shows you the gap. The largest achievement gaps we have in ELA are amongst those 2 groups. Now please cycle it forward 1 slide. Now look at the last 2 lines there. They're going in the wrong direction. And so this is also not a place where it's going to be as easy, because this is more of a systemic problem. It's not a small group. I mean, it's a relatively small group, but it's not like Pacific Islanders, which I think or the 2 or more races, right? That one had a sort of a negative finding there, but it's like you can actually isolate those kids really easily and probably figure out what to do for them pretty easily. So this is where I'm concerned. The other thing that I just want to say is for one of the projects that I'm working on at work, I went through the state's ESSA accountability plan, right? And I'm going to kind of flip-flop a little bit on what we did at the work study, because at the work study we said, make some reasonable goals. And I noticed that, when I was looking at our ESSA plan today, they say in 7 years, all schools for all subgroups should be green or blue within 7 years. That's the goal. That's hugely aggressive, okay? So I mean, there's a lot of work, I think, for everybody to do, not just us, but everybody in the state is going to have a hard time. So the last thing that I do want to say is I don't want to leave this really grim. We should also look at what these gaps look like in the state distribution, because these gaps might be prevalent across a lot of other districts as well. So we shouldn't beat down on ourselves and say we're the only ones that have these types of gaps. We should see how large these gaps are across all the districts in the state, and that'll help put this in perspective a little bit more. Okay. Nevertheless, it's still, alarming when you look at that. Not only the roughly 50% that aren't yet meeting, but also the gaps for some of these groups, particularly English learners and students with disabilities, because we're just not doing these kids justice. So.
Agreed. Anyone else? I think we can go on to budget.
Okay, thank you. And so we did review the budget at the work study as well, so I'll just go over a few slides as a review. The budget continues to be aligned with our LCAP. We did review some adjustments we had from last year's budget to what actually occurred, and we listed them here. We had some higher special education costs, declining enrollment, and some unanticipated facility costs with the heavy rains and the gas leak at Ocean Shore. So for 17-18, the state's adopted budget above on the top portion looks like that. The one thing we weren't sure of when we adopted our budget was the one-time mandate funding, and that did get approved, and the state is paying us about $400,000 of one-time discretionary funds, which will be paid in installments in December, February, and April. The Parcel Tax Committee met last week and reviewed our parcel tax expenditures, and they will be coming to the board in January to make their report. And these are the expenditures they reviewed and compared that to the parcel tax ballot language. And then we have our Pacifica Education Foundation, our PTOs, lease income, and grants. So here's just a snapshot, you've seen this from the budget study session of our revenues in a pie chart. Most of our revenues come from the state in the form of LCFF funds, and those are those red boxed areas there. And we're getting more property taxes now than we did in prior years, which means we have more cash flow issues. Because when the state pays us LCFF funds, it's evenly spread through the months. The property taxes are paid in December and May. So when you look at our cash flow in our budget and our interim reports, we have negative cash flow from October through December, and then again from, February, March. And we do have a TRAN, the loan the board approved, that helps fund that. So just kind of be aware of, we have to continue monitoring our cash flow. So we talked about our employee housing project, really to help attract and retain employees. The project is, upwards of 18 million, 45 units. It's looking like when we do our study session that we hope to schedule with the board that the costs have gone up with construction costs. It could be more than 18 million. The financing we just talked about, and we'll go into detail when we meet with the board on that. The loan will be paid back over 30 years with rental income from our tenants, our employees, and then it would bring a positive cash flow to our district after that. And then our facilities planning, we talked also about the GEO bond that the district is looking at moving forward, and hopefully in February the board will make a decision and pass a resolution on that to put that on the June 2018 ballot, which is funding for our facilities, and we have a strong need throughout the district, over $55 million in facilities needs. So this is something we wanted to go over with you that's a little bit different than the study session. Is we do have some added costs for 17-18. Since we adopted the budget, it's been very difficult to hire psychologists. We had one contracted last year, and a contracted psychologist is a bit more expensive than an employee. So looking at two, we're looking at about $50,000 more in contracted services. The same goes for speech services. Last year we were able to hire a speech pathologist. We were not able to fill that position this year, and so that's additional $35,000. It's very difficult to predict placement of students. They come and go in our district. You see our enrollment, goes down, goes up, and students come and go. We do have some additional county placements, about 2 to 3 additional students in the county class. And we do have a student of high need that, was placed in a non-public school that was not there last year. And that is a very expensive non-public school, $188,000 for one placement. So that is something that we will look at the county high-cost pool to see if we can get some of those revenues back. But until we have all those calculations done, we're going to have to budget an additional $188,000 for that student. Good news is, students also come from other districts and enter our program, and we are able to bill those districts for our costs. And so we have a credit of $53,000, which we didn't have in the adopted budget. And, the board is fully aware of the GEO bond costs. The election costs are $60,000, and our consultants' costs are $40,000. So these are adjustments since you adopted the budget that you're going to see in the first interim report. Along with the one-time funds that I mentioned under the revenues. So just continue looking at the 17-18 budget considerations. We knew we were overstaffed, and so we've reduced staffing based on our current enrollment. The state COLA is 1.56%. It's not going to cover our STRS, our PERS, and our health benefit regular operation increases. Will has talked about the reduction in federal programs and how that's impacted Title I, Title II. The federal has reduced by 20-30%, so we've been having to make some budget shifts. And there you can see the $440,000. We had already encumbered $60,000 for professional development. Given that we had already reduced our professional development budget since last year by $30,000. So now with the $440,000, you see some of the expenses on the prior slide. Some of those more of those one-time funds have been spent since we last met. We continue to work on our facilities plan, Odstad workforce housing. We are going to work very closely with SELPA, to ensure that we have, accurate revenue figures and expenditure figures for the students that are placed at the county and for the county mental health costs and things like that. And then the reserve cap was approved by the governor, and that modifies, this is new since the last time we met, it modifies the existing reserve to 10% given certain factors take place. It's not really going to affect us because we don't have 10%. So when it was the normal reserve, 6%, we did have to make that report, but now it's not something that is going to affect us anytime in the near future. So those are just things we are going to continue to monitor as we build our first interim budget. I don't know if you have questions, comments.
It would seem that one of our fiscal woes currently is declining enrollment. And I'm just wondering, what does it look like over the horizon? Do we have any projections of whether people are getting busy and there's going to be some increase in births?
It doesn't seem like there's a lot of new housing in Pacifica that's going to, assist us with that. But if you just did like straight line enrollment projection, like last year was 60 students, this year we're at 30 students less. If you just graduate your 8th graders, take in the same kindergarten class, you're looking at another 30, decline of 30. So that's 3 years in a row, 60, 30, 30, and then the third year out,
I'm just wondering about sort of the age of residents here.
Oh, that,
as well, because as people get old, pass on, and then maybe newer, younger, hopefully families could afford to come in and move in.
We seem to be bringing in the same number of transitional kindergartners and kindergartners right now. So my hope is that we do have the bubbles through the grades.
I thought there was a 2K bubble.
Yeah, we're really low, I believe, in 3rd grade. Is that the 3rd or 4th?
No, we're really low in 4th.
4th grade. 3rd grade last year, 4th grade. So, we have these little bubbles and they just don't fill in the right place, so to speak. So, but we are seeing that the kids are coming in the primary grade. So my hope is that we're on an upswing, but we have to weather this part where we have these gaps to fill.
I'm wondering if is there any way to track the early childhood
There's also,
places just to see? Sorry.
At the early learning meeting, one of the city's Tracy works for the pre-K program.
For the triple T?
She's saying that they're at a 4-year low in enrollment.
Okay.
But again, this might be just, there's cost to it. That might be deterring them. But they're even offering subsidies and doing all this advertisement, and they're almost like 50% of what capacity is. I don't know if that's an indicator or not, but that was a little bit shocking to me when I heard that. It was like, wow, it's not.
There's also the private centers as well that we want to look at. But just hope. I have one colleague that has 2 kids. She just, one's like 2 years old, the other one was just born and just moved into Pacifica like 6 months ago. So I brought 2 in.
We'll take them.
Yeah, we need to add some.
I'll go adopt.
Any other questions or comments for Josie? Thank you.
Thank you.
Organizational chart, 2018 operations governance. Wendy?
Okay, so today I bring forward to you our organizational charts. Thank you, Jill. And he's going to bring them up. The first one we're going to look at is for the superintendent, just because it kind of gives you a good overview. And there's no way to get that larger. Okay, thank you. As you can see, the superintendent oversees admin services. There's a lot of boxes here: board relations, oversight, strategic planning, city accounting, and city relations. These dotted areas are shared areas because each cabinet member will oversee certain policies in our board policies. Human resources is shared, although I oversee human resources now. Josie will take on certain roles, etc., and I'll go in depth in that. Educational support services is shared with Will. And then there's the integrated services piece, which Ray oversees. So, can I go to the next one, please? Ivan?
Oh, sorry. Hands are back.
So if we enlarge that one, this is, again, human resources. So I just wanted you to see how we have broken out HR. I will be overseeing staffing now, credentialing, hiring, etc. But Josie will be our chief business official, will be the chief negotiator. Will oversee labor relations certificated, the sub-certificated, and then teacher induction plan we share. Ray will oversee classified labor relations and then the substitute classified relations. So again, it's all shared. The next one. For educational support services, as you can see, there are a lot of things we do within this department. Basically, it's really around partnerships. This is where PEP is, the collaborative, etc. Pacifica School Volunteers, we work very closely with, our DLAC and our library. We have instructional materials. That's where we go through all of our vetting processes for adoption and purchasing of instructional supplies. State and federal programs, that's where all of our funding goes through so that we can fund our Title II, et cetera, like our professional development. The next one is,
Projects and grants.
Pardon me?
Projects and grants.
Oh, project and grants, we have our Safe Routes to School grant. Oh, thank you. I guess I could look up on here. Safe Routes to School grant. And First T is one that we receive as well, and we do our homework center out of this particular section. And then we do technology within there, which really is about hardware and our network services. And then, of course, our testing and accountability are both our formative and summative assessments. The next one, oh, thank you. Integrated services. Oh,
Okay, hold on.
you should maybe pre-open them, you know. As we go.
F on PDF isn't there.
Oh,
is that the problem?
Yeah.
It just says PD.
Oh, you
So
couldn't
change
open it either?
There's always a few.
We changed the file name to PDF.
Yeah, but you can't,
I got it.
you can't do that on the, right?
Integrated services.
Integrated services.
It's the,
Yeah, that's, I think,
okay, it's not gonna go. So integrated services is really Ray, and he oversees sorry, Ray. He oversees two huge areas, which is special education and student services. Now, what we did do this year, along with under student services, is because we are really combining our social emotional learning piece there. And our school climate piece all together. It's just, it really works together well. Ray is also overseeing physical education and the health curriculum because they all sort of blend together. Then the next one is Josie. And Josie has some, along with being chief negotiator, which is a huge task as itself, she looks at the fiscal piece, which has all of our accounting and payroll, et cetera, budget the FMO, we call it Facilities Maintenance and Operations piece, which is our custodians, transportation, actually transportation. We did move into integrated services because most of our transportation is for special education. And then child nutrition. And so that's our food services. The last thing that we do have attached that we will not show because it's just a bunch of people and items is who does what. So we do provide this list to our employees in the opening packet. And I think it just demonstrates all of the things we need to do and how we have such great staff members who really have to fulfill multiple roles, wearing multiple hats, and we still have a very thriving, strong school district. So I have to applaud everyone for all of their endeavors and really keeping everything moving smoothly. Any questions?
These charts always make me think of that children's book about taps for sale, and they're wearing 100 hats.
Yes.
Thank you.
So Wendy, I had a quick question. The who does what was very impressive. I liked it. Was it meant to be more of a who does what in terms of organization, or also as sort of a directory? So if,
Yes, that's what it is.
So I suggest that you might want to put at least phone numbers next to those, and then possibly email addresses.
Well, the difficulty is...
There's not space.
There's not space. So we do provide the directory with it too, so I know.
Yeah, I was thinking that I would actually, and I can do this for you.
Oh, you can?
Sync it into Excel and just turn it into a pull-down menu. So you pull down the does what thing, and then all of a sudden the person's name, email address, and phone number comes up.
But you wouldn't put it on here.
I would put it in a very, very small Excel file.
Okay. I mean, we could talk about
Yeah,
that.
sure.
Because I'm not...
Sure.
I'm not quite... I think probably Suzanne could do that too. But, I mean, we just do a hard copy of this. But it's not something we can't post.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good idea.
Anything
Thank
else?
you. It'll probably be easier than when you look for it, then you can say, oh, this is how I get a hold of it.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. 11D, County Committee on School District Organization, Nominations, LCAP Governance. Wendy?
Okay, so this is really to see if there is someone that we would like to nominate. For our district, it would be the at-large. It does tell you who qualifies, etc. I believe Laverne or Andrea, who does the,
That's me.
where you serve on the committee, but this is, I think, like the governing board of the committee is how I sort of read that. So are there any nominations that we would like to bring forward?
So these were the ones that really made the decisions on the redistricting, putting, those three houses over there to the other
Yes.
district. So they're pretty important positions. Just saying. Anybody wants to do something that sounds interesting?
Now, it looked interesting, but you have to be on this for 4 years,
Yeah.
which is kind of hard for those of us going off in a year,
Well-
possibly.
Well, but, then if you're no longer a member of the
They
board,
replace you.
they have to fill it with someone else, or they keep it vacant. I mean, I don't know if they can say, well, since you're on this, you need to run again.
There you go, Kathy.
Right?
True. I'll give it a thought, but let's talk a little bit more, if everyone's okay with that.
Okay with that.
Okay.
So, could I make a suggestion? Because I think we have to fill this nomination form out before our next board meeting.
Okay.
Right? That we could nominate and should the person
Refuse the nomination.
rethink themselves, then I'll report out that unfortunately,
Person back up.
yeah. Is that all right? Would that be okay?
Yes. Person doesn't know if their husband is watching the board meeting tonight and is right now yelling at the TV.
That's pretty
Put
good.
your hand down. Okay. Thank you.
As he smiles at the camera.
So, action, so we need to take a vote, correct? So I will abstain.
Yeah, we would like, is there
Would
a
somebody like to
nomination?
nominate?
I'd like to nominate Kathy for this
I'll second.
Okay, it's been seconded. All in favor?
Board passes 4-0, 1 abstention.
4 more years. You have your commitment now.
Thank you.
Okay. 11E, first quarter report on Williams uniform complaints, LCAP operations. Josie?
I'm happy to report for the first quarter, there were no complaints in textbooks, instructional materials, teacher vacancy or misassignment, or the condition of our facilities.
Yay. Thank you. Okay, future agenda items.
Okay, so we did request a board work study that we would like to have on November 8th. So we will have one on November 1st for our sixes, then hopefully the November 8th, which is a Wednesday, to go over the financing for the Ostead workforce housing. Then on the 15th, we will have a presentation by Aubrey Merriman, he's director for the Boys and Girls Club of America. The sixes will be brought forward for action with the suggested modifications. We will have a wellness presentation. I knew we were supposed to do it tonight, but we needed some more data to add, so Ray will be bringing that forward. And then the rest, we have some approval of resolutions, etc. And I'm hoping that we will get the CSD delegate assembly nominations, and I can bring that forward too. I haven't received any information on that quite yet. There will be a board policy update on the school-sponsored trips, and it's a minor one due to class size changes. Okay, that's it.
Anything else? Okay, then meeting is adjourned at 8:20.
November 8th.
Work study,
November
yeah.
8th.
Is that when the real
I know, what time was that again?